and welcome back to the Nitpicks podcast. I'm Stacey. I am the Pattern and IP Director at Nitpicks, and as always, I am here with my friend Lee. Hi, Lee.
Hey, Stacey. Hi, I'm the Nitpicks Books and Patterns graphic designer.
Yay.
What have you been up to? I think you did something fun that was maybe yarny but not knitting.
I did, in fact. About a couple weeks ago, I guess. Now, I decided to go down to my local pub, and they have a craft day every month. And there's been various things, but this one was macrame. And I had never thought about doing macrame. I remember my mom doing it in the 70s and 80s and having all of these like plant holders everywhere. And I remember playing with it as a kid, but it was never really something that I was interested in. But I was like, it's kind of, related to yarn in a way. So I went down there and took like a 3-hour class, and it was really, really fun.
Cool.
I only learned one part of it, but I just learned how to do just knots, and I made a really nice, I think it's nice. I made a plant holder. And then, I don't know, about a week later, I decided I got some more, and I made another one. It's not quite as nice, probably because I didn't have the instructor sitting right next to me, but I liked it. It's functional. Yeah, it was really fun.
Cool.
I enjoyed doing it once I got the hang of it. It took me a while which is where any craft, I suppose. It takes a while to have that muscle memory while you're doing knots and things. But yeah. And you'll be happy to know that because I had a plant holder, I needed plants for it. So now I am a plant person again, or attempting to be. It was some really beautiful days here in the Northwest. So I went to the Portland Nursery, which is a really big place that sells all sorts of plants. And my partner was excited to go because he likes to do bonsais, and he likes looking at all the bonsais there. So I went and got some succulents. So I figure that's a safer choice than something that needs a lot of attention. So I have like a bunch of succulents in my kitchen and hanging plant holders. And I'm like, am I a plant person now? Am I? I don't know. So
fun.
Yeah. So we'll see if I can keep them alive. If I can keep them alive for 6 months, then maybe I'll get some more and be more of a plant person.
Well, I do think that indoor plants are harder than outdoor plants because plants want to be outside,
Great.
So don't
So
be
I'll
discouraged if you can't if you can't keep them alive. Maybe try an outdoor plant. I'm not an indoor plant person. I'm a strictly outdoor plant person. It's easier, I think.
Well, I will say that my mom gave me a succulent last year for my birthday, so it's going on 9 months and it's still alive. So I realize having it in my kitchen window helps because I see it all the time when I'm standing at my kitchen sink when I'm washing dishes, because I live in the dark ages and I do not have a dishwasher, so I have to wash all my dishes. So if I can see it, so I figured if it's someplace where I'm seeing on a constant basis, I'll keep them alive. Hopefully. As long as I don't overwater them. As long as I don't, because I know succulents don't overwater them. So
yeah, definitely.
So
cool.
But yeah, so what have you been up to?
Oh, I've been lots of knitting. So my Hawthorne DK movie theater project, I finished the body. I counted my movie stripes. Each stripe is a movie, and I did 11 movies since I started in, I think, November. Movie theater movies. And it now measures the body length. Went really fast. I got there quicker than expected. So of course I had to cast on a new movie theater project because I gotta have a movie theater project. So
of course.
So that one is kind of on hold while I figure out the sleeves and the top yoke part and stuff. And then my new movie theater project is it's going to be some kind of like tank top or t-shirt kind of summer knit in Semia, which is a Cupro silk blend, I believe. I forgot to double check that, but yep, that's right.
Yep, that's correct.
Producer Andi says yes. So it's a fingering weight yarn. I'm not going to knit a fingering weight garment.
Yeah.
You know me. So I'm holding a double. I got 4 different colors, so I'm going to rotate between the 4 colors. Well, I'm actually, one of the colors is white. I'm going to do the 3 colors, which are orange and like a chartreusey green and a yellow, I believe. So each of those 3 I'll rotate through for my movie stripes, do 1 stripe per movie again. And then I'm going to do 1 single row of the white in between each stripe. And I did the ribbing in white. Finished that. I did 1 movie already last weekend. It's like a little bit harder to knit without looking with the double-stranded like slippery yarn. So I made 1 mistake that I could kind of feel with my fingers in the theater, and then I just fixed it when I got home. Not a big deal. So I think it's going to work out nicely. And then if I keep seeing a lot of movies in theaters, and this one goes as fast as the other one, and it's going to be like a tank top, so I don't have to worry about the sleeves. Hopefully I'll have it done by summer.
Yeah.
And then I started another improvised cable sweater, which I'm like really on a roll with, and I'm like pretty far on it already because it's a bulky weight. But if you have been listening, you might remember my improvised cable yoke pullover, which the yoke of it was very loosely inspired by a sweater that Stacey and I both saw in the show Only Murders in the Building. And we saw that sweater, we talked about it. I like came up with this cable yoke design like very, very, very loosely based on the idea of like cables getting smaller as it goes up to the neck. But I also was really interested in kind of brainstorming about the bottom part of that sweater where the cables kind of start bigger and then go up through the whole body. And I ended up like thinking about that enough to kind of like write down an idea for how to do it. And then it like morphed into like, well, I don't want to just like copy it exactly. And I thought it would be cool as a cardigan. So I'm doing it as a cardigan with the cables kind of covering the whole front panel and then the back panel starting out as stockinette and the cables kind of coming into the stockinette from the sides.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So I'm like far enough into it already to know that it does seem to be working. If I was like writing it as a pattern, I would make some tweaks. There's like some things I'm like, oh, if I had done that different, it might look better. But like I'm just kind of figuring it out as I go. It's looking pretty cool. So I'm excited about that too. So I've been knitting a lot on that the last 2 weeks or so. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I actually started a knitting project. I needed something smaller to work on. And because I was done with a bunch of sock projects and I didn't really feel like picking up one of my old ones because that's what we do. So I cast on with Hawthorne DK. So I finished my deep winter coat, and Wool and Pine actually has a deep winter hat that kind of goes along with it. So I decided I've had this pattern like literally opened up in my tabs because I bought it like, I don't know, a long time ago, but it's been open in my browser tabs forever. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to cast on for it. I need something small to like, and more portable because I was doing a little bit of, traveling and being away from home. So I started, I'm only through the hat brim, but it's in Hawthorne DK, which I love. So, and I always need a new hat. I'm constantly wearing hats. So I felt like a cable hat that I hadn't knit before. That's what I was thinking. But you are also part of a new pattern that came out, I guess when this comes out, about a week ago. Andi's collaboration sweater.
Yeah.
You want to talk a little bit about that, or we want Andi to come on and talk about that a little bit?
Hello.
Yeah. we didn't discuss this before, but I'm just like, oh wait, we should talk about that. And it was kind of a fun story how it came about.
Yeah. So the sweater, we've been calling it Anastasia sweater because our coworker Anastasia, who has since moved on to another better job, we'll miss her. She
Not better. Just
just different. More exciting more drawing for her because she is an illustrator. So.
Yeah, she does pretty awesome illustration. She wasn't able to do a lot of that with us. So yeah, we're happy for her.
She drew a sketch of a sweater she wanted. She had like a vision for, but she's not a pattern designer herself. She's just a graphic designer. both designers. And I was like, I could write that for you. So she knit the swatch, and I took her swatch and I took her sketch she provided me, and I turned it into a sweater pattern. It's a super bulky sweater using fluff of the Andes with like color blocking and some optional decorative like whip stitching. It's very fun.
Yeah.
And a bunch of people at the office knit it.
Yeah, a bunch of us in the office knit it. A lot of people did pretty or did their own modifications for how they wanted to style it, which was kind of off what the pattern suggested. So Andi and I like stuck to the pattern, and the 2 official samples that you'll see in the pattern were knit by Andi and I really enjoyed knitting it. And I forgot that I was knitting that kind of last couple of podcasts, and I couldn't talk about it because it was a secret. I did finish that last week, and I wore it the other day, and I love it. It's so comfy.
We got to take really cute, like buddy photos, just me and Lee. It was so fun.
A little bit like Sears portrait inspired.
I am so sad I missed that.
John,
I was not in that day.
John, our photographer, kept asking us what the name of our band was going to be, and I was like, "We're the Angry Stitchers."
Amazing.
And Lee has a pattern that's also super bulky that we also took photos of.
Yeah, that came out the same day. I just named it today as of the recording, unless the name changes, I think the name is going to be Squoosh Hat. Because it's very squishy. Oh. It's super squishy because it's super bulky weight, and it's garter stitch knit sideways with a cable kind of around the brim. It's very warm.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's good for if you live in a cold place or you're taking a trip to a cold place. It's quick to knit. It's fun to knit because it's a sideways wedge construction. So like the wedges kind of go by like potato chip knitting, like they go by pretty fast. Awesome. They're knit with short rows, so the short rows shape the crown, and then the cables are on the other side. Yeah, fun.
Nice.
And you can make a matching hat and cardigan go together because they use the same yarn.
Awesome. Well, these will be on the website as you listen to this, and we'll make sure to link it in the show notes. So 2 very fun, very quick projects if you just need that in your life.
Stacey, what else came out the same day as those patterns? Something you're excited about, I think.
Yeah. So we have a new collection. It is a small collection, ebook only, and it is called Simply Home. So I wanted to to highlight our Simply yarns because I think they're lovely, and I don't think we highlight them enough. So I wanted to do a whole collection around it, and with more of a sustainable bent because the Simply yarns are, not processed or not dyed, not minimally processed. They're a really wonderful yarn. So we did a small home collection. It is in all neutral shades. There is 3 blankets, a basket, which is really cool, a really fun kitchen towel that's a pretty simple project, and then dryer balls, which it was funny. The day I got these from the designer, Faye, I was like looking all over for some dryer balls near my house because I was trying to dry a pillow, and it says to use tennis balls, but I'm like, dryer balls would be better. Could not find them. And I'm like, if I would have had this, I could have made some. But they're a really fun project. I'm really excited. I just hadn't seen those. I hadn't seen a knit version of those. So they're felted using roving, and just you can use Simply wool. We used it in 3 different colors, but you can easily get, I think, 3 balls from 2 skeins of yarn, 2 hanks of Simply wool, or you can use wool of the Andes too for a single. We did another set in wool of the Andes as well. So
just make sure it's not superwash because it's going to felt.
Exactly. Needs to be 100% wool, non-superwash wool. So, or alpaca, I think too, but stick to wool. Yeah, and they're fun. They're definitely nice for dryers where you don't have to use like fabric softener sheets or any of those things. This will just keep it from getting static and help you dry your clothes better. So, and pillows, which is the thing I discovered. So But yeah, and the baskets are really neat. Those are also by Faye, and that was an experience for me because I used you can keep them non-stiffened, or you can stiffen them to be like an actual basket that'll sit up, and I did it both ways, and it was my first foray into that. So, but Faye provided a video of how to do it, and it worked beautifully. So, in the samples you see, the small one and the very large one are both have the stiffener in it, and then the medium sized one doesn't have the stiffener. So, kind of a show it all the ways around. So.
What do you use to stiffen?
This what Faye did was white glue, just white Elmer's glue that you buy in the store,
yeah.
and you use a lot of you mix it with water, and then you just soak it, and then you need to dry it on, which is actually the hardest part for me, was trying to find like a box that it would fit on, so it would dry in that shape.
Okay. So you're like molding it.
Yeah. So, and then once it's dry, I was like, oh, this isn't going to work. It was like, I remember it was over a weekend, and I had like my entire table covered with like weird things. And my partner was like, what are you doing? And I'm like, they're just drying. They'll get off there in a minute. And, but once it came off, it was fine. It was not, because I feel like a lot of starch, when I was talking to some of our, Connecting Threads coworkers, a lot of the starch just kind of makes them feel really gross and weird. And this is just kind of a nicer way. I mean, it still doesn't feel like a super soft yarn, but it doesn't feel as gross. I don't know how else to describe it. But you can also do other things to have it, or just don't stiffen it. So especially the smaller ones.
Yeah, depending on what you're going to use it for.
Yeah, I don't even think the smaller ones really, you don't really need to do it if you just want to have like just a small basket to put your yarn in, because we didn't have anything in the medium sized one. Like I said, we didn't put any like stiffener in it, and the yarn sat in there just fine. So cool. Yeah. And then there's just some nice blankies. And yeah, they're just really cozy blankets and a really fun kitchen towel. So yeah. And they're all available. You can buy the patterns by themselves. I know the dryer balls will have a kit put together, so that's an easy one-click shopping. And then the book will be just ebook only. So fun thing to do to decorate your house while we're still waiting for it to get nice and springy and warm. And so we're going to be talking a little bit more about the Simply Wool book. We have the wonderful designer Bridget Pupillo, who is going to be talking about her pattern that's in it, which is a lovely reversible throw, and all of her other amazing patterns. So stay tuned. And we're back. We are with one of my favorite designers to work with. You have seen her all over the site. This is Bridget. Why don't you introduce yourself, Bridget?
Hi, everyone. I'm Bridget Pupillo, and I've been working with Nitpicks for, I think, 9 years now.
Yeah, I was trying to get a date. I was like, was it 8 or 9 years? It's
close to 9.
A long time.
Yeah.
So we're talking to Bridget today. She has released 2 amazing patterns with us already this year. But let's get started. How did you get started with designing in the first place?
So I've been knitting since I was 7. My mom taught me continental style. My mom's an amazing knitter, and she continues to be one of my best test knitters. But I didn't really start designing until I was in my 30s. I was a newly single mom with a toddler, and I was looking for ways to make some money, have a flexible schedule, and also just knit for my child. And it all sort of came together. I think the first patterns that I designed were actually kind of small hats or children's sweaters, and then I moved on quickly from there.
Amazing. Is that what you like? What do you like designing the most?
It's a tough one. I mean, I love sweaters, but I also enjoy a good hat. So I would say the thing that I dislike is I get bored easily with scarves. So I don't do a lot of scarves.
I can see that. Before we talk about your new patterns, I think all of us were really excited to talk about one of our all-time favorite patterns on the site. You are the designer of the Eldfell. And this is something that we have worked on. We've re-knit it. We had a whole knit along last year.
I made it. I loved
yeah.
it. I had fun with the colors. I added some extra colors because I can't resist.
That's
it was really fun.
Do you remember how you came up with that design?
So I've been knitting traditional Icelandic sweaters forever. I mean, it's just something that my mom and I do. And I really wanted to kind of capture that feel of the traditional Icelandic sweater, but I just really fell in love with Wonderfluff. And so I wanted to revamp the Icelandic sweater with this brand new, fluffy, light, wonderful yarn. And so I kind of just reworked the idea of the Icelandic sweater from the bottom up. Came up with a very traditional snowflake star pattern and went from there.
And listeners, you will not be able to see this, but we can see that Bridget is wearing her Eldfell in our little interview here. So it is
my very first sample. Yeah. Exactly.
So yeah, we've done. I love that sweater. Like during the knit along, I just didn't have a chance to join it, so I just told everyone that the one that the new version that the model is wearing is the one I did because I was the one who chose those colors.
Yeah.
So it was almost like I did it.
It was yours in mind. Yeah. Yeah. And I love the new colors. I mean, the original was all shades of gray. It was very neutral and it was a big hit, but I love the the bright colors. I think Wonderfluff added a lot of colorways.
Did you have another design in Wonderfluff as well?
I think I might have. Yeah. I think I have a hat perhaps in Wonderfluff.
Okay.
I'll have to look through. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a very popular yarn around the office.
It's fantastic. Yeah.
So you do a lot of color work, but you also do a lot of cables. And let's get started with the lovely pattern from our Homestead collection, the Cotter's Walk Pullover. It's in high desert. Where did you come up with that idea?
So I actually saw the call for submissions for this Homestead Cables collection. And I thought, wow, that's something I haven't really tried yet. Let me give it a try. I tend to usually do more traditional Irish kind of cable work. And so coming up with an idea that would be more of a traditional farmstead. It was something new for me. I looked through a lot of really old patterns. I looked through some stitch dictionaries. I tried a few things together, and then I came up with this idea of a kind of a simple texture of the moss stitch, and then the central cable. I'm really pleased with the way it looks.
It is really, really beautiful. It's definitely been one of the most popular ones from the collection I was looking at, and it was funny too because I think it looks beautiful, and it looks in like the photos we took. Actually, it was kind of in a different spot of the home of the farm we shot at, so it gives it definitely a different look, but. I really love it. It looks really beautiful.
Yeah.
So
and the dark purple, it's like you can see the cables, but it's like you gotta kind of look a little closer.
Yeah,
it really like catches your eye. I think that like dark purple.
That color is just amazing. I can't wait to get my hands on it at some point. Yeah, it's really beautiful.
We can probably hook you up with that.
Okay. I should also say that High Desert is probably my favorite of all of the Nitpicks yarns. I just absolutely love it, and I've designed, I think, a number of garments in High Desert. I just love it.
I feel like you did in our initial batch, our first collection of High Desert. You had a sweater in that.
I did
another color work sweater.
Yeah, I think it was the Fort Rock pullover. Yeah,
yep,
I think
that's it exactly.
Yeah, and then I think I also did the the Gray Rig. The Gray Rig sweater was also
from the
High Desert.
Thicket.
Oh, I love that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of my favorites from Thicket.
See, you do cable sometimes. That was a cable sweater. And then now you have just released on the site the Aberdare throw. Am I pronouncing that correctly? I just realized
Aberdare.
I'm bad with pronunciations. So this was great because this one uses Simply Wool Aran, one of our sustainable yarns. And you want to talk a little bit about that pattern?
Yeah. I think that the request was for something that was a kind of simple all over pattern that would even work for a beginner. And so I decided to go with a really bold and elongated chevron, but it's actually really simple to do. I mean, it looks more complicated than it is. So, yeah, and I love the Simply Wool. And I thought this would be the perfect combination, kind of simple, sustainable, and also beginner friendly. So
yeah, and the best thing about it is it's reversible.
yes, it's completely reversible. I love that. I wasn't even expecting that to happen, but it is one of those stitches that you can flip over, and it's perfectly great.
That's the best thing about for like blankets and for scarves too, because you do see the wrong side as much as you see the right. Not as much, but it's just nice when you flip over a blanket or a scarf. You can still it still looks nice, basically.
It's still useful. Yeah. Yeah, I love the way the photos came out for that as well. I was super pleased to see what it's going to look like when it comes out and is published.
That was a shoot actually on a very, very snowy day up in the mountains, and a little inside. It was very snowy, and we were kind of disappointed that we weren't shooting a snowy type collection because it was perfectly set, and all the photographers were like, "Oh, too bad we're not shooting a sweater collection."
That's okay. It still looks wonderful.
We don't get a lot of snow in this region, so it's disappointing to waste a snowy day and not be able to do a photo shoot.
That's true. I mean, sadly enough, so I'm in New England where you would think we'd get a lot of snow, but we don't anymore. So we haven't had snow in more than 2 years. So
oh my gosh.
Yes, we're leaning towards the Pacific Northwest in terms of our weather.
Yeah, we've gotten snow every year. Well, not a huge amount. And in fact, that day that was the first day it snowed, and it was mainly up in the mountains, but that's exactly where we were shooting that. So right. I had a terrifying drive up there.
Oh my gosh.
But it was worth it because it was a beautiful house, and it really fit the idea I had behind the collection to have a more neutral toned, sustainable, undyed wool, undyed yarn collection. So it worked perfectly for that. It was just very, very scary drive.
Scary getting there. I don't know if it's okay for me to ask a question, but I'm kind of curious. How do you choose your locations for your photo shoots? Because they're all so unique and different.
Well, first of all, I have usually when we do the collection, we kind of have an idea of what direction we want to go. So then I meet with Hillary, who is the director for the photos and for the catalog and everything. And we kind of hammer out, and we kind of look for different places, Airbnbs, peer space, people's houses. We kind of look into parks. But we're also lucky in the Pacific Northwest is we do have access to a lot of different places, of different backgrounds. So, because we're not too far from the desert, we're not too far from the coast. I wish we could shoot on the coast, but not too much. But we're really close to the mountains. We've got a lot of greenery, so we can kind of make things look different.
Too.
Cityscapes,
right.
So
have access to a lot of different settings.
I mean, even it's not as much now, but several years ago, there would be times we just shoot around the office because we had so many different kind of woodsy looking backgrounds, and we still will shoot at the end of the parking lot. In fact, we just shot not too long ago with Andi. We were shooting her sweater, and it was at the back of the parking lot, but it looked nice. So it looks like we're in a nice little park. So
any shots that you see on Instagram of finished knit along, when we do an office knit along and then we all take a picture, that's always just our office in the back, right outside our office.
That's
but
great.
It has nice fir trees. Pacific
Yeah.
Northwest greenery.
We try to make each collection look distinctly different. So the short answer is Hillary and I get together and look at a lot of stuff. So a lot of pictures and a lot of Airbnb and Peerspace stuff. So
Oh, that's great.
So I've been doing books for 5 years now, pretty much exactly. And I know I've worked with a lot of your patterns and a lot of our books over that time. But looking at the site, you have a lot of older patterns from before my time, and I think a lot are IDP. Do you remember how you got started with Nitpicks, and what did you mostly do IDP for a while?
Yeah. So I think when I first started designing, Ravelry was certainly there. It was much smaller than it is at this point. But I was looking for alternative places to publish my work. And I'd been using Nitpicks yarn for, oh gosh, years and years and years. I mean, it's like a staple in my household. Half our stash is Nitpicks. So I thought it would be really great, since I'm knitting with Nitpicks yarn and I love it so much. It would be great if I could design for Nitpicks. And I started searching around and found that there was this independent designer program. So I thought, great, I'm going to send something in. This is October of 2015. So
Wow.
coming up on 9 years now. And it was accepted. It was really exciting to have something up on the Nitpicks website. It was a little child's hoodie. And then I continued with the IDP. I think the majority of my patterns actually are with IDP, but after having some things published with IDP, I realized that, or perhaps my name got onto a list, and I got my first
list.
call. Yes, the list, and I got my first call for submissions for an actual published collection, and I thought, oh, this is great, and I really love those because the IDP. I come up with the plan and the idea, and I make it work, and then I have my mom test it for me. So it's really just something that's all about me. But with the published collections, it's a theme and an idea that's coming from elsewhere, and I find that super exciting to be able to create something that fits with the theme and fits with the idea that you all have in mind. So I love them both. They're both fantastic, but yeah, just different. But yes, my very first one was in 2015 with you all, and I think at this point I have 37 between IDP and the published collections.
That sounds about right. I remember looking it up earlier, and I was like, yeah, you have done a lot with us, Bridget.
Yeah. And I will keep doing it as long as you'll have me.
Scrolling through right now, one of my favorites is definitely the Beak Street Tea, which I believe was in the Vertex book, which was one of my favorite books that I've designed. It's all
that
color
was
block.
A wonderful collection.
I love the diagonal.
And so different from what I typically do. I almost didn't submit anything to that because it's so very different from my more traditional style. But I thought, you know what? I love this idea, and I need to send something in, even if it's not accepted. So I came up with.
Oh no, I remember that when we did when we chose the patterns. I want to say that was one of the first ones we picked.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Like I remember it from the submission call meeting, and just being like, "Oh, this is definitely a yes." Like we all agree, yes.
Yeah, I love the diagonal with the stripes. Yeah,
yeah. It's just it's one of those patterns where you look at it and you're like, "Why haven't I not seen that before?" Like it's so perfect. It's just a boxy tee. It looks so wearable and comfy, and I would definitely knit one for myself to wear if it wasn't in fingering weight yarn. I've considered just modifying it to be like in DK weight.
Sure, that's actually a great idea. Yeah,
it's been a long running discussion on this podcast is that Lee does not knit fingering weight sweaters.
I'll keep that in mind.
I love how they look. I will gladly put them in a book I'm designing.
When I was coming up with the idea for that, so my mom has been knitting since she was a teenager in the 60s, and so we have a pattern collection that goes back to the 1960s. Like actually, she has a lot of vintage patterns from the 40s that she inherited. So I went through all of the 60s and early 70s pattern books that she has, and I I grabbed some ideas from there about, stripes and putting things together in this kind of mod way. That's really where
Fun.
the idea came from. Yeah.
Oh,
Nice.
amazing.
I love that. Are any of your other designs like inspired by vintage? I feel like yes. Like looking at them, I'm like, oh, a lot of them feel kind
Yeah.
of Well, it feels like you take inspiration from a lot of different. You're talking about Icelandic lopes and traditional Aran, and yeah.
I do, yeah. So I really do like the traditional kind of either Scandinavian or Irish Scottish. Um,
Mhm.
so a large part of my family's from Scotland and England. So I tend to go towards that. In fact, a lot of the names of my patterns, I always choose a place name rather than giving it a person's name or just something else that's
Mhm.
thematic. I try to choose a place, and I often go for places in Scotland or in Northern England. I just look
Yeah.
on Google Maps and find a name that just seems to fit what I want. Go with that. So
Definitely, naming things is tough. It
yeah,
is the hardest thing. We've talked about it, I think, on the podcast before, like naming patterns, yes, but like naming yarn colors and yarns and stuff. Everything's been taken, it seems like.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah,
speaking of, we were talking earlier about fitting something to a theme, like for designing, like with naming, that makes it a lot easier too to like come up with a theme. Like with static, we do like TV show related names, and
mhm.
then that way you're thinking outside the box of because it's especially with yarn colors, it's so easy to stick with like plants and foods.
sure, right,
and I do appreciate when you that you're this is no knock on anyone else, but your patterns always have a name. It's like a lot of patterns don't have a name yet. So this is
really.
not a knock on
Oh,
anyone
Because
else. Yeah.
we don't like require it. So some people will just be
ah,
like raglan striped sweater, and we'll be like, okay, we'll come up with a name.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's fun, and sometimes it's difficult.
yeah, I can imagine it would be hard to name someone else's pattern. I think, yeah. Um, I was wondering about the Simply Wool because we were talking about that recently with the Aberdare throw pattern. How did you come up with the names? Because they're all like
Oh,
Wendy, Wanda. I love the names, but I'm
I
wondering what
have
they are.
that is a really funny story because we named all of the uh wolves with W names. So and then we also took some inspiration from some of the employees at the time.
Ah,
So that one of them is called Winkle, and that is from my last name. And then all of the simply alpaca ones are for A names, and there's
mm,
several past employees as well as current employees names in there. So they're just names.
that's
W names
fantastic.
and W names and A names. But
I
yeah,
love it.
both me and Alexis, who is our director, both have our own yarn name there.
So interesting. I love hearing the other end of the story. I know how I
Yeah.
create my names, but I love to hear how you create your own names for the
Yeah, we
yarns.
with yarns, it's like I said, colors are really difficult because we try not to name a color the same name as something else that we've already
But
had, even as it been.
we've
Yeah.
had a lot of colors over the
Yeah.
years.
Yeah. I mean,
So
palette alone is just
yeah.
hundreds. So yeah.
So like we'll have a theme. That's why I think the themes have been definitely coming more recently, at least a
Mhm.
lot, because we had woodland tweed, and then we had
Mm.
woolen cotton had a certain theme, and then static and Felici is usually or Felicini are usually our weird ones that we come up with the most bonkers or pop culture inspired ones. So
Because the fun thing is if we
yeah.
know a yarn is a limited time only, if it's just going to be that run of colors and then
Right.
replace it with new colors, then it's not going to be around for years and years and years. So we can have a little bit more fun with it.
Fun. Yeah, that's
Yeah. If
great.
it's a more permanent color, we're like, okay, we should stick with like plants and like things that can last a long time.
Lasting. Yeah. Sustainable, let's say.
Speaking of sustainability, good transition.
Yes.
So our kind of theme this month, tying in with our Simply Home collection, is sustainability, like simplicity. What's like your relationship with like the concept of sustainability?
Yeah. So I think sustainability comes really naturally to me, and often I find that the term is kind of interchangeable with frugality,
Mhm.
because I grew up with not a lot of money, and so we would look for ways to be more sustainable just out of necessity.
Mhm.
We have bags full of yarn scraps, like tiny little just bags and bags of them because you just never know when you're going to need that.
Yeah.
So we never throw out anything. We use the yarn for stitch holders. We use the yarn to make markers. I mean, we use it for everything. Sometimes we use it to stuff pillows. Um, Sometimes we would make a little bird's nest with it, outdoors for the birds. So yarn for us is kind of sacred. It's not something that you toss in the garbage. Um,
Yeah.
and so for me, the idea of sustainability is fantastic, and I love that there are yarns available through Nitpicks that have this in mind, that allow you to use sustainable materials in a way that's low processed. I think it's fantastic.
Nice.
Yeah, that was definitely the idea behind our Simply yarns, or Simply cotton, Simply wool, and Simply alpaca, just such a minimally processed, because it can be a lot of processed in yarns, with colors and materials. So we wanted to get right down to the bare bones. So no dyes, no nothing in any of those yarns. So
And I have
it's
to say, like I haven't used the Simply alpaca for whatever reason, but for the Simply wool, it has that lanolin smell.
mhm.
And I just love it. It's just an amazing smell. I
Fresh off
can't
the
wait to
sheep.
open it. Yes, it's fantastic.
When I first started working for Nitpicks like 5.5 years ago, the first yarn that I like found a sweater quantity in the free area that um was a sweater quantity of Simply Wool, and I was so excited because that was the one I was most excited to work with.
Yeah.
'Cause I had already worked with a lot of Nitpicks yarns in the past as a designer, but I hadn't worked with Simply Wool yet. I found a sweater quantity and knit a big chunky. I think I used the Aran weight held double to make a super
Mm.
bulky because that was
Oh,
the pattern I
wow.
wanted to make, was like a super bulky pattern. So it's
Yeah.
very warm and I can't actually wear it very often because
It's
it's too
so
warm to wear,
warm.
but I
Yeah.
love it. It's so
Yeah.
cozy.
It's
I
great.
loved working with it.
I'd like to give, some of the upcycled, yarns a try as well in terms of sustainability. I think that's a great idea. I just haven't had a chance to work with them yet, but I think those would also be wonderful.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
definitely a fun one. That we've had it out a couple of times over the years. So the last batch was, oh gosh, was it over a year ago now?
Mhm. It was
And then I'm sure in another couple of years, once our mills contact us with that they have all of this, we will probably have some more.
yeah, they kinda save up their scraps and then turn it into yarn. They're like, "Here, do you want this?" I'm like, "Yes,
That's
Yeah,
great.
please."
Yes.
Yeah.
sure.
Why not?
Awesome. So, is there anything you can share with our listeners that you have coming up? I know something, so sorry. I'm being very sneaky, but what else do you have coming up, Bridget?
Yeah, so I do have a few ideas in the works. One of them I think will be published later this year, will be out
Yes,
later
it
this year.
will.
So I won't talk about that too much. It'll be a surprise. Um, but in terms of ideas in the works, I have a few sweater patterns that I've actually designed but haven't yet gotten together into its complete pattern form. So I'm looking forward to kind of putting those together. And I'm really excited about the new yarn line, Bubbly Boucle. I think it's looks great. So I have an idea in mind for a sweater using the Bubbly Boucle, and I love the
Ooh,
retro colors. It's great.
excited
Um,
about that.
yeah, yeah.
Andy
So
Andy's very excited. That's her special yarn. So Andy is
it's
very
wonderful.
Andy, our producer, is smiling in the video call.
I love the lime fizz color, and I think everyone else
Yeah.
does too, because I can see there's like a kind of a low quantity, but I'm hoping that I can get my hands on a little bit of that. So yeah.
Nice.
And then Yeah, I'm just looking forward to the next call for submissions. I mean, once I get one of those, I kind of quickly put something together, and I try to actually create the garment if possible, in time to send a photo of the finished item. So that's
That's
really a great inspiration for me to get that call and say, "Oh, here's the theme. Let's find something that works."
And another thing I will just say, and so much love for you, Bridget, and your submissions, but really having the full garment is so helpful because, I mean, not that we expect everyone to do it, but
Right.
it's like, yes, we know exactly what that is going to look like when it is complete and in the book. So it's very
Yeah.
helpful.
I figured it would be helpful. I know that if I were trying to choose, that's something that I would look for. Yeah.
It also gives us some confidence. I mean, not that we've already worked with you for many years, but that the actual pattern actually will work.
Will
So
work. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Bridget.
Yeah.
Where can our listeners find more info on you? Where are you at on the web?
Right. Where am I? Well, other than Nitpicks, where you'll definitely find me. You can even just put in my last name. I also have a Ravelry designer page. It's under Bridgie Knits, so it's BRIGI Knits. And I have a little group there as well, where I sometimes put out test calls for new designs, and then I have a website that's Bridget Pupillo knitwear. So in both of those places, you'll find me as well.
Cool. And we'll link to all those in the show notes too, both on the podcast feed and the blog.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you again, Bridget. And it was wonderful to talk to you after so many years.
Yes, I know. I mean, I feel like I have a kind of personal relationship with so many people at Nitpicks, which is funny because we've hardly ever, spoken in person, but
lots and lots of emails.
Lots of emails.
It means a lot. It means everything. So.
Yeah, it's great. And you're also wonderful to work with. It's just a fantastic, fantastic group of people.
Oh, it's a big love fest today.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks again.
Yeah, thank you.
This podcast was originally created by Kelly Petkin.
It is produced and hosted by me, Stacey Winklepleck, and Lee Meredith.
Produced by Andy Satterland, with additional production and editing by Chase Ryan.
Special thanks to Bridget Pupillo for joining us today.
We recorded this episode in the Pacific Northwest, where we are filling our homes with crafts.
From everyone here at Nitpicks, thank you for joining us.
The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the individual participants. They do not necessarily reflect the opinions or views of the Crafts Group, LLC, or Premier Needle Arts.
All the yarn, tools, and patterns mentioned in this episode, along with all the inspiration a knitter could need, can be found on our website at knitpicks.com.
If you'd like to be on our podcast, leave us a voicemail. We'll be checking it regularly and using your calls in later episodes. To leave a voicemail, call 360-334-4847 and record your message. You can also record a voice memo on your phone and email us that audio file at podcast@knitpicks.com.
Like and follow us on your favorite social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, and YouTube at Nitpicks.
Rate and review us wherever you listen to this podcast.
Until next time, happy crafting.